Officials in Gaza say at least 20 children are dead after new Israeli attacks near Beirut and in Gaza. A new report from the UN's Human Rights Office says nearly 70% of people killed in Gaza in the last 6 months have been women and children. The report says the high number is due to Israel's use of weapons in densely populated areas, and it has raised concerns once again about war crimes. For a closer look this morning, we're joined by Michael Link, former UN Special Rapporteur for the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Anne-Marie.
First of all, Michael, what do you make of this report?
It's the newest of a number of reports that have come out both from the United Nations and from major human rights organizations over the last 13 months, which have raised serious concerns about whether international law has been respected, both by Hamas, but also by Israel as well. I think this latest report, which covers the first 6 months of the war from November until April of 2024, is a devastating commentary on the way in which Israel has conducted its military offensive in Gaza, and I suspect that this report is being closely watched by the Office of the Prosecutor at the International Criminal Court as it begins to review whether to expand the number of charges it's going to be making against senior Israeli political leaders.
And has Israel made any statement in response to this report?
It's condemned the report. It says it's doing all it can to spare civilians. It's saying as well that it's doing all it can with respect to humanitarian aid. But this issue of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza has also become an important issue. Today, the UN Security Council is going to be debating the issue of starvation in the Gaza Strip. Before the war began 13 months ago, there were approximately 500 trucks a day carrying humanitarian and commercial aid into Gaza. It's now fallen to roughly 22 trucks a day in the first 8 days of November 2024. And this also puts us on alert because the United States had sent a letter 1 month ago to Israel saying, if you haven't increased the number of humanitarian trucks entering into Gaza up to 350 a day, we're going to review our weapons sales to you. And instead, the number of trucks going into Gaza has actually gone, is it worse than any other time during the 13 months of the war?
The politics of this piece is very frustrating, but I want to focus on what's happening on the ground in Gaza this morning. Nearly half of the hospitals right now in Gaza have been or are destroyed. The United Nations Relief and Workers Agency for Palestinian Refugees says 19 of the 36 hospitals are out of service. So if someone needs care, Michael, what happens when they show up to a hospital?
If they can find a hospital, if it's safe enough to get to a hospital, what they're going to find is a depleted hospital. It's operating a little more than probably a health clinic. These hospitals are short of staff. They have virtually no medical supplies given to them because of the small amount of humanitarian trucks entering into Gaza. These hospitals usually will have no fuel. They will be overcrowded. And this is where many Gazans are trying to find shelter because they realize that while no place in Gaza is safe, huddling either in a UN school or a hospital is probably the least dangerous spot for them. So only these hospitals can only care for the most, I guess, grievous of wounds that are coming in. And these doctors are making life and death choices as to who to treat and who not to treat.
And we talked about that, about the number of deaths, and we talked about weaponry, but there's also malnutrition, starvation happening on the ground as well. What options are there for people to get aid in Gaza who need it at this point?
Well, the best option on the table is the one that's been there since November of last year, which is an immediate and permanent ceasefire. That would end the war. That would allow humanitarian aid to enter into Gaza at the level that it's needed to be able to meet the humanitarian needs of the 2.2 million Palestinians who wind up living there. Second best choice would be to ensure that there are safe humanitarian corridors for food and other humanitarian aid to get to Palestinians wherever they are throughout the Gaza Strip.
Michael, I want to thank you for joining us. That's Michael Link, former UN Special Rapporteur for the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory. Thank you for the update.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.